Welcome, everyone, to a very special Grizzlies Live. It's the 21st annual Martin Luther King Jr. Day celebration. In moments, the 18th annual Earl Lloyd Sports Legacy Symposium presented by the Hyde Family Foundation right here at FedEx Forum. Always a celebration this day of year. We welcome you inside FedEx Forum. Rob Fisher alongside Brevin Knight. And Brevin, I know we're looking forward to everybody today, and I know you're looking forward to hearing Gary Payton as well.
Yeah, very interested to hear my boy GP talk in a different fashion than I am accustomed to hearing him talk on this such special day.
It is a special day, and it's always one that we look forward to. And without further ado, let's send it over to the practice facility. Our own Pete Pranica hosting the event. He'll take it from here. Pete.
Thank you. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the annual Earl Lloyd Sports Legacy Symposium presented by the Hyde Family Foundation. A warm welcome to all of you here inside the Built Ford Tough practice facility and all of you watching on Bally Sports Southeast. I'm Pete Pranica, TV voice of the Memphis Grizzlies, and I'll be your moderator this afternoon. Through this symposium and the National Civil Rights Museum Sports Legacy Award, we recognize our honorees' dedication and their significant contributions in the spirit of Dr. King to civil and human rights, the social justice movement, and for laying the foundation for future leaders through their own careers in sports. We're proud to partner once again with the National Civil Rights Museum to host not only this symposium, but an entire series of events this holiday weekend that give a platform to the critical dialogue that needs to be had that not only honors Dr. King's legacy, but continues his life's work yet to be fulfilled. Now, if you'd please welcome to the podium the president of our Memphis Grizzlies and FedEx Forum, Jason Wexler.
Thanks, Pete, and good afternoon to both our audience here at the Built Ford Tough practice facility, as well as to those viewing on Bally Sports Southeast. I want to thank the Hyde Family Foundation for their continued partnership and support of the Earl Lloyd Sports Legacy Symposium. I also want to thank this year's honorees for making the time to join us here in Memphis. It is by recognizing each of their lasting positive impact beyond the court and field that we're able to reflect on the intersection of sports in the spirit of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. This is the 21st season of our annual tradition of honoring Dr. King's legacy. It's a point of pride for our entire organization as we work to bring awareness to and support for the National Civil Rights Museum's drive to deepen our understanding of the ongoing movement for social and economic justice that Dr. King defined. The Grizzlies are grateful and privileged on this day every year to be able to carry forward a conversation that both reflects on where we have come from and reminds us of how much remains to be accomplished. It's now my pleasure to introduce the president of the National Civil Rights Museum, Dr. Russ Wigginton.
Thank you, Jason, and thank you to the Memphis Grizzlies, who have been steadfast supporters of the National Civil Rights Museum and worked with us to build robust programming that really highlight the beauty, the culture, and the sense of community that we have here in Memphis and beyond. I've been at the museum much of the day, and despite the rain, the energy and the inspiration and the just spirit of service, the true legacy of Dr. King is being lived out today at the National Civil Rights Museum. Oh yeah, by the way, the Grizz line was there too, the drum line. So we had a great time with that. The intersection of race and sports is a powerful vehicle to make change in our country. I'm reminded that recently we lost Bill Russell, an amazing pioneer in the NBA, who also is a 2011 Freedom Award recipient. And when we think about people like Bill Russell, who performed on the court and stood principled about truth, equity, and justice, it's a reminder to all of us that the intersection of race and sports can help be a change agent in our country. Thank you, Memphis Grizzlies, and thank you all for supporting us at the National Civil Rights Museum.
Thank you, Dr. Wigginton, and thank you for all you do to make the National Civil Rights Museum a treasure not only here in Memphis, but around the country. We're going to take a brief pause here, and when we come back, we will introduce you to our 4 honorees, and we'll begin this afternoon's conversation.
Back to the Earl Lloyd Sports Legacy Symposium presented by the Hyde Family Foundation. It is now my great pleasure to introduce this year's honorees. Gary Payton played in the NBA for 17 years and is widely considered one of the greatest point guards of all time. He's most well known for his 13-year tenure with the Seattle Supersonics, where he holds franchise records in points, assists, and steals. He also played with the Milwaukee Bucks, Los Angeles Lakers, Boston Celtics, and the Miami Heat, where he won an NBA championship in 2006. Nicknamed the Glove for his defensive abilities, he was inducted into the Naismith Basketball Hall of Fame in 2013 and was named to the NBA's 75th anniversary team. He was the first point guard to win the NBA Defensive Player of the Year award and the only point guard to win it in the award's first 39 years. 9 times he was named to the league's all-defensive first team. Those 9 selections, an NBA record that he shares with Michael Jordan, Kevin Garnett, and Kobe Bryant. He was also a 9-time NBA All-Star and a 9-time All-NBA team selection. Payton's philanthropy focuses on the economically disadvantaged as well as youth development. The Gary Payton Foundation was established in 1996 to provide safe places for recreational activity and to help underprivileged youth. He also donated $100,000 to the East Oakland Youth Development Center, which he himself attended as a youth, for a gym renovation. In 1999, he wrote an autobiographical children's book entitled Confidence Counts, as part of the Positively for Kids series, illustrating the importance of confidence through events in his own life. In July 1999, Payton was named to the Sporting News Good Guys in Sports list. Please welcome Gary Payton. Luol Deng was born in South Sudan, but with the civil war there, he would flee the country with his family to Egypt and was ultimately granted political asylum in the United Kingdom. At the age of 14, he moved to the United States and found success as a high school basketball player and was considered the second most promising high school senior in America after LeBron James and was named first-team All-America by Parade in USA Today. He then attended Duke University for 1 year, making it to the 2004 NCAA Final Four and becoming only the 10th freshman in ACC history to lead all freshmen in scoring, rebounding, and field goal percentage. He then entered the 2004 NBA draft and was selected 7th overall, ultimately playing 16 seasons and was a 2-time NBA All-Star. The Luol Deng Foundation works to improve the lives of people in Sudan and South Sudan through education and sport. Deng has also been involved with the United Nations World Food Program and Nothing But Nets, which works to prevent malaria in Africa. He now serves as an ambassador of the Basketball Africa League and is president of the South Sudan Basketball Federation. The longevity of his career and world work has enhanced the lives of people in his home country and throughout the world. Let's welcome Luol Deng. One of the most influential figures in the history of women's basketball, Nancy Lieberman, became the youngest basketball player in Olympic history to win a medal when she helped the USA women's basketball team capture silver as a 17-year-old at the 1976 Olympics in Montreal. It was the first women's Olympic basketball competition. She went on to star collegiately at Old Dominion and professionally in the Women's Pro Basketball League, Women's American Basketball Association, and the WNBA. Elected to the Naismith Basketball Hall of Fame in 1996 and Women's Basketball Hall of Fame in 1999, she has also coached in the WNBA, NBA, and the NBA G League. She grew up playing on the blacktop courts of Queens, New York, and appropriately enough, Nancy Lieberman Charities builds and refurbishes basketball courts across the country. Called Dream Courts, these courts aim to make basketball more accessible and provide a safe environment for kids to play. Nancy has partnered with the City of Memphis and NLE Chapa on a dream court here in Memphis that is scheduled to open in March. Please welcome Nancy Lieberman. After winning the 1995 Heisman Trophy at Ohio State, Eddie George played 9 seasons as a running back in the National Football League, including 8 seasons for the Houston Oilers Tennessee Titans franchise before finishing his career with the Dallas Cowboys. The 1996 Offensive Rookie of the Year and 4-time Pro Bowler earned a reputation as one of the NFL's most reliable and prolific runners, topping 1,000 rushing yards 7 times and never missing a start during his time with the Houston, Tennessee franchise. In NFL history, only Walter Payton has started more consecutive regular season games than Eddie George. After his NFL career, Eddie earned his MBA and ventured into teaching, wealth management, and the restaurant business. He ultimately found a passion for acting, was cast in numerous plays around Nashville before landing the role of Billy Flynn in the Broadway musical Chicago. He continues to wear many hats as he currently serves as the head coach of Tennessee State University. The newly established Tamara and Edward George Legacy Fund was created to positively impact communities by providing financial and community support to organizations and individuals in the areas of education, entertainment, and entrepreneurship. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome Eddie George. Let me add my welcome. This is always a great day in the city of Memphis. These conversations have always been fantastic. And what I want to do is, I always read a little bit about Dr. King coming into this and trying to find some insight that maybe I had not seen before. And some people don't realize when Dr. King was here, it was because there was a sanitation worker strike because of poor working conditions. And on the night before he was murdered, Dr. King told the audience that if God had let him choose any era in which to live, he would have chosen the one in which he was living. Now that's a strange statement to make, King said, because the world is all messed up. The nation is sick, trouble is in the land, confusion all around. But I know somehow that only when it is dark enough, you can finally see the stars. That's partially what brought Dr. King to Memphis, and so we celebrate his legacy today. By way of getting started with this, I like to ask, when did you first become aware of Dr. King, his philosophies, his teachings, his activism? Nancy, you and I are the only two on the stage who were alive when Dr. King was alive. So was this part of... I'm throwing myself under the bus too, you know.
I think there's discrimination going on. It's a great question, right, Eddie?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Growing up in New York City, I really didn't know as a young person at all about Martin Luther King. I had heard his name, but I didn't understand his effect in the world. It wasn't until I was 19, 20 years old and I was making an appearance in New York, and my hero happened to be the other athlete. His name is Muhammad Ali. And Muhammad Ali, from that day, took me under his wings and taught me about racism. He taught me about Dr. King. He shared with me everything that, you know, as he said, the black man had gone through. Things that we learned yesterday with Russ over at the Civil Rights Museum, from the color of your skin, like things that I never thought about, because in my youth, my besties were African American. I lived at Rucker Park. That was my world, and my trust and my love were people that didn't look like me. So I'm really grateful that Dr. King, you know, did what he did as far as being bold, being articulate, being a voice of the people, but all people, and he was never afraid to say what had to happen, and he did it in such a way of humility and nonviolence. And I felt like I had a little bit of information because of all those interactions with Muhammad Ali, who spent a lot of time with him. So I felt a little bit like I was getting some firsthand knowledge. It wasn't out of a book. And Ali was so compelling about his love and his respect for Dr. King. So it's coming full circle for me that you would have me here. Thank you to the Grizzlies, to the city of Memphis, to Russ. It's an honor to be with my friends here today, so thank you.
Luol, obviously you grew up in Africa, emigrated to Egypt, and then to the United Kingdom. So a little different perspective in terms of your origin story. Where did you become knowledgeable about Dr. King, and what did you learn, and what most impressed you about him?
No, yeah, definitely. It was, it's a lot different for me, obviously, growing up in Africa, like you said, and going to the UK. From a young age, I've always knew about Martin Luther King. I come from a background, my father was a Minister of Education and Transportation in South Sudan. At the time, South Sudan is the youngest nation. We're only 11 years old. And my dad fought for those things. The reason why I became a refugee is because my dad stood up against those things. So I had a father who was very aware of Dr. King. As I got older, obviously I started gravitating and learning more and reading more about Dr. King and his legacy and everything that he's done. I always tell people I've been here in the US since I was 14. I feel very connected. I feel very aware of the things that are going on. But Dr. King has influence not just in the United States, but all around the world. A lot of us are influenced by the way we live our lives because of the vision and the ideas that he had and he implemented.
Eddie, what about you? When did you first come to really understand what Dr. King was all about?
Oh, man. I don't remember a particular event, but as far as I can remember growing up, my grandmother's household, my mother's household, that presence was always felt, you know, it was always talked about. He was talked about and his impact on civil rights and how at the particular time growing up there in Philadelphia, you know, there were still remnants of racism and some segregation, and over time I've come to understand his impact in terms of the rights that we did have in terms of going to school and riding the bus and being able to go to a restaurant without being harassed, you know, where that all came from. So as far as I can remember, that was always introduced to me, and even in school, you know. So his speeches just always resonated with me growing up. You know, I have a dream, you know, that his cadence, how he inspired us to continue to push forward, to fight for those that are constantly being suppressed by the injustice of this country, and to continue to do that. But the thing that resonated the most with me is his ability to bring everyone together. It was never just about being black or white. It was about all races, all ethnicities, all people of different religions coming together. And he did it in such a graceful way with such dignity. It still is poignant to this very day. You know, we were just we all took a tour of the Civil Rights Museum yesterday, and there's a section in there where he's talking, I have a dream speech, And we just all sat there as if he was delivering it today. And we've heard it thousands and thousands of times on CNN and CBS this time of year, but you could hear a pin drop because it still speaks and it resonates to this very moment. So yeah, that's as far as I've been black and born, that's what I knew about Dr. King. So yeah.
Gary, growing up in Oakland, what impressed you? What came on your radar from Dr. King?
Well, me being born at the same year that he got assassinated, and my parents being born in the 30s, and they going through what he was going through. The dream thing is about all of us being as one. You know, we couldn't get on the bus. We couldn't use the bathroom in the same bathroom. We couldn't drink the water from the same faucet or the waterfall. But to me, being in Oakland and dealing with the Black Panthers who were going through that and trying to do what Martin Luther King was trying to do to make it equal for everybody. It's just an equal thing. I know he's smiling right now because we are doing so good about it. You know, racism is starting to go down a bit. We had a thing a couple of years ago with Floyd and stuff is just now starting to trickle, and we're trying to change. But we got to keep changing because we got still a lot of things out there that's negative. But I know he's up there smiling because he started something. And he's making something happen. He made something happen. And that's a big thing because, you know, me growing up in Oakland and seeing the Black Panthers and Huey Newton and things like that, and all the things that was happening made a good insight for me. And my mother and father going through the 30s, the 40s, the 50s, and the 60s and telling me about the situation. And then I go to school and I get to hear the speeches. I get to hear the things that he did because they're teaching it in Black history. It was a good thing for me. It was a great thing for me to grow up in that era.
Just to open it to the floor, one of the key tenets of what Dr. King preached was nonviolence. Violence could have been an option, but it wasn't for Dr. King. How important was it that the civil rights movement was nonviolent?
To me, when you're nonviolent and you have such a dynamic message like Dr. King had, you're talking about long-term sustainability and growth. A fight is a fight. You're going to have another fight, and it's going to be reoccurring, the physicality of that. But he created a movement, and the movement included everybody. There was no segregation in the movement because, according to what I know, the U.S. is 13.5% African American. These guys can't do it. They can't do it by themselves. I don't want segregation. I don't want to be split. You can't take me away from my brothers and sisters. And you have to be bold, even if we are a different color. It doesn't matter. Ali told me a long time ago, the greatest religion in the world is loving kindness. So if you lead with love and you lead with kindness, and like my smile makes you smile. It's a show of warmth. It's a communication that, I can either, scowl at you and they're like, I'm gonna stay away from her. She's from New York. She probably had an angry childhood, which I did. And I never really had Phil or Oprah to help me through those days. But here I am. And this is, we've all been given so many incredible things, awards, kindness in our life. But this is, to me, the most important, impactful moment. And it's not a mistake that we are here today, in this time, in this moment, in this place, that we get a chance to honor someone who gave us a roadmap for change. I mean, it's like Eddie didn't want to get a scholarship to college. He wanted to be the best. Lou didn't want to be just, another high draft pick or Gary. We want to be different. We want to be the best. That means that we have to be game changers and life changers, and that's what Martin Luther King was. I give my little pinky, not on my shooting hand, but I give my pinky to have met him and to just shook his hand and say thank you. Thank you for blessing us all.
And what Nancy is saying, Nancy is like a big sister to me. I love her to death. Every time I see her, I hug her and I kiss her and all that. It's not about a skin color or nothing about that. That's my sister. She educates me on everything. And that's what we need. We need more togetherness. You know, it's not about violence, and not about all that. It's not about black, white, Oriental, or nothing. It's just about all of us being as one. You know, and she bleeds just like I do. She does everything the same thing like I do. And we gotta love each other. Get to know somebody, no matter what the skin color is.
And I'll say this to your question, the level of restraint it took during that time to take all that. There's the Nashville sit-in. That was at Woolworth. That's a restaurant in Nashville, still there today. So I couldn't imagine having somebody spit on me, pull me, kick me, and to have restraint, because if you fight back, that was your life. Now you give them license to kill you, and it kills the message. So preaching that during that time and how heavy it was, how intense it was, the energy, the hatred that was there, and the fear that you may lose your life. I mean, I'm gonna swing back. I mean, so that to me, you know, to send that message out, to have restraint, to look the other way and to not fight back and to be selfless was remarkable. And that's what makes it amazing, because the 50s and 60s, to Gary's point, was no joke. I can remember as a kid growing up in Philadelphia, my father, we're driving through a neighborhood, a white neighborhood. We saw a burnt cross. And as a kid, that was like eye-opening, because that lets you know that the KKK was present. And that tried to send fear throughout the neighborhood, throughout me, because there were certain places that we couldn't walk. We couldn't walk through that neighborhood. And now, you know, we're getting to a place where it's not as intense, but it's still, remnants are there. I mean, let's just be real. You turn on the news, it's still there. And we have a long way to go with that. And one thing that stood out to me, I might be jumping around a little bit, is that what it's all about is humanity. Is a couple weeks ago, there was a young man that played for the Buffalo Bills who got hit in the chest, heart stops, and everything stopped. Football didn't matter, black and white didn't matter, rich or poor didn't matter. What mattered was his life. Nothing else mattered. You saw white men holding black players, black players holding white players, holding hands, praying. That's what it's about, praying for that man's life, so we can have the empathy to look at or listen to somebody else's story or appreciate where they come from or their perspective and not have judgment. Then we're moving in the right direction. Because we can stay stuck in the times and be pissed off and upset about what happened in the past, but what are we going to do when we come to that resolution and we are, okay, I understand you, you understand me, now where do we go from here? Where's the win-win? Where's the equality? Where's the diversification? Where's the inclusion? So that's the place I think is the next step, is that, hey, we understand there's an issue, there's been issues, are we willing to move forward in a harmonious way?
Yeah.
So.
See, it's well said, Eddie. And the Damar Hamlin situation, white players, black players, everybody joined together because his life was at risk. How can we do this every single day, not just because somebody's life is at risk that we care about? How do we develop that?
Doing this right here, continuing to have the hard conversations, and not masking it, not being politically correct, but coming straight down the middle. You know, it is what it is. It's right or wrong. It's black and white. It's how do we find that? And not being afraid of it. Because today, you say the wrong thing, that's your career. You know, you go on social media, you tweet something and say it wrong, you offend somebody. I can't call a player soft now. Back then, my coach called me soft. He called me a rose petal. You know, he says, you look good, but you're fragile. Like, what? You say that nowadays, you lose your entire contract. You lose your life. So it's sensitive, you know? And so I think it's having panels like this. I think it's having a time where we can remember, but also how do we be proactive and move forward out of this? What are the laws? What are the policies? How can we get your ass out there and vote? You know what I'm saying? Understand what's going on in your particular part of the country, in your community, not just what's happening nationwide, because that's how a lot of these laws are getting passed. It's right under your nose, and being a student of that and being involved. So that's what it's going to take, is having real conversations and getting all the nonsense, all the BS out of the way, and getting down to the crux of the matter.
Let's talk a little bit more about conversations, because you talked about the dignity with which Dr. King presented himself, which I thought was huge as part of the civil rights movement, along with the nonviolence. Then, Nancy, to your question, you'd give your pinky, non-shooting hand, to talk to Dr. King. I want you all to chime in on this. If you had the opportunity to meet with Dr. King, sit with him over a cup of coffee, what would you talk to him about?
Me, I think I would try to pick his brain about everything of how can I get my life and get everybody else's life better. How can we do that? How can we get that message out to say, you know, let's stop all this nonsense. Let's all be as one. I would want to hear him today, see how it's changed from the 60s to now, and what else can we do to get it better. That's what I would want to say. And I would ask him, what can I do in my life as who I am right now to get it out there more? What do I have to do to change my life to get to these people to know? Because all four of us up here can get to somebody's life. Me and Eddie is getting to young kids' lives now. Lou is getting to people's lives now. Nancy by doing different courts. So what can we do to make this message? And Eddie said it good. More panels, more things that we can do. What can we do and share with these people? Can we go to different cities and talk and let them understand this? And I think he would have a good message for us and let us know how to do that. Because he was doing it in the 50s and the 60s. So I know he would know what to do right now in the 2000s.
Yeah, and with the advent of social media and such. Lou All?
I think just to go back a little bit to your previous question also, I think understanding, to be a great leader is understanding how you impact things for later. You know, what made Dr. King such a great leader? He had a vision. He understood how to act because of the effect that it will have later. You know, it's always easy to say retaliate or be aggressive, but you don't understand the trauma or the things that it will cause for the later generation. And to be a great leader, you have to see that and put however you want to act aside and understanding the bigger goal and the bigger vision. Now to answer your question on if I was to meet Dr. King, you know, the biggest thing, or one of the things that I would ask him is, you know, how was he so strong in understanding that no matter what, his purpose was way bigger than now. You know, the purpose is such, to understand your purpose and your impact, you know, it's such a valuable thing that we don't always get to understand because we always want to act upon right now and what we do. But it's so hard to understand legacy and what your impact will be. You know, when you look at being in America myself, you know, America is such a big influence, not just for the country that it is today, but what other countries, what we follow. And that was all because of Dr. King and all these leaders and what they did. So to be able to sit down and just have a conversation on, as a leader, how do you see that? How do you see that the way, the road that you took will be so effective that until even today, you know, we still, till today, we don't have such a leader. And we still, just like Gary said, we need leaders for so many other things that are going on to take us to the next phase. And those are questions that only could be answered by him.
Nancy?
To me, it seems like with Dr. King, he had controlled aggression. He knew what he had to do, I think to Eddie's point, where, you know, fighting wasn't going to solve anything. But to be called a leader, you are an influencer. To be an influencer, you have to give people a reason to follow you. He gave people a reason to follow him, and his message was so faith-based that I believe that was the foundation of who Dr. King was. So to point out some of those things, I still find it fascinating, again, to Eddie's point, that he was able to be measured in his approach. He obviously had a tremendous game plan, which we're all trying to get good. I'm trying to game plan against Gary. You know, so you have to have a great game plan if you're trying to get your message to others to follow you and then to do it with excellence. And that is something I would ask him. I would ask him about how he went about, what was his days like? Did you wake up in prayer? Did you take notes? What were your buckets of success? So I would like to kind of, you know, peel the onion back and find out what his thought process was. And then I would thank him because, you know, we're here in Memphis today, so he had a profound effect on my life because he made me not afraid. You know, Gary talked about our friendship. Well, I'm not afraid to coach in the NBA. I'm not afraid to coach in the NBA G League. I'm not afraid to coach, you know, in the Big Three. I'm not afraid. You know, I respect everybody, but I fear nobody. And that's something that he and Ali talked about in so many of their private moments together. And then I will share this, and I don't think I've ever shared this before in my time with Muhammad talking about Dr. King. The shortest poem in history is by Muhammad Ali. It's me, we. If I'm a better me, then we'll be a better we. If we're a better we, then exponentially we'll be a better they. And now we have the movement and the people to set out and act upon the conversation. Because if we keep talking, all we become is compulsive confessors, but we don't solve the problem. Women do that all the time. So I'm not, you know, I'm about diversity, inclusion, and equality. To me, diversity is you've asked me to come to the dance. Inclusion is you asked me to dance, and I want to dance.
Eddie, you get to visit with Dr. King.
I would ask him in his quiet moments, you know, what gave him the courage and the strength to persevere. And I'm pretty sure there were times when he wanted to live the comfortable life, when he had his children there and his wife, and his wife's making pancakes and bacon, and, you know, there's no fear. I think, you know, during those times, you know, just having a quality of rest, be able to sleep peacefully, you know, that's success during those times. How did he muster the strength to fight through that? You know, getting death threats, because I tell you, when I get a death threat, I'm like, you know what, this cause is probably not worth it for me. You know, I mean, honestly, I mean, you know, you really think about it, he had a household that was very successful. All his children were educated. They were well aware. I mean, very successful, a successful marriage from what we know. You know what I'm saying? So how was he able to keep all of that together in the midst of what he was doing? Because it had to be a higher calling that he had to listen to each and every time that he wanted to quit. He had to see it through. I'm almost for sure that there were moments when he was like, is it worth my life? Clearly it was. So I would ask him that, because I get up the side of my bed every morning and I'm like, do I want to do this? Do I want to deal with, comes down the pipeline today, a kid missing class, or a drug test, or not doing his work, or dealing with mold in the vents, or not being fed? Do I want to deal with that? And that's, my life isn't on the line. So I'll be curious to find out what kept him together in his quiet moments.
Nancy, you talked about doing things in the community. We have the conversations, which are very valuable, and today's conversation has been sensational. But putting it into practice in the communities. All of you have been active in the community, in the world, and I want each of you to take some time to just tell us a little bit more about what you are doing, have done, and want to do for the future. Lual, I'll start with you.
Yeah, I was drafted after, obviously, when I was 10 years old. I was a refugee in Egypt. By the time I was 18, I was drafted by the Chicago Bulls. So just in a period of 8 years. I always felt that because of my background and everywhere I came from, I always felt that God gave me an opportunity to excel at what I do and to be able to give back. In 2004, I started my Earl Lloyd Foundation, just right on my rookie year. And my whole focus and my whole purpose has always been about helping others and giving back, whether it's using basketball as a tool to give back throughout the foundation. Now we have the Earl Lloyd Academy back in South Sudan, where I have over 400 plus kids in scholarships. We do Doctors Without Borders, where we go around, we get doctors from all over the world, and we go back to South Sudan. We go to villages where there's no hospitals and there's no doctors, and they perform surgeries. We do wheelchair drives. So basically where my foundation is focused is anything that I can do to give back to where I came from, because I know that I was fortunate and I was blessed to have the opportunity to get out of the situation that I got out from. So that's how I always try to live my life throughout my career and after my career. Now I'm back home. I live between South Sudan and Miami. I'm back and forth. But as soon as I retired, I dedicated myself to go back home and to focus on helping others and doing as much as I can.
Gary, I know that you've been big in Oakland, where you grew up. Tell us a little bit more about your work there.
Well, I just took a coaching job, a university job at Lincoln University there. Like Eddie said, I didn't want to coach, but my reason on this earth, I think that God gave me that, is to help other people. My father did it as I was growing up. All the kids in my neighborhood didn't have fathers. My father opened up our home to do that, and he was their coach. Right now, I have so many foundations, I have so many charities and things that I give kids a lot of opportunities to get out of different neighborhoods. Some of their parents don't have the money to support them. I give scholarships for that. I give a lot of scholarships for that. So when they go to school, they don't have to worry about buying a book. They don't have to worry about getting clothes and doing things like that. My job and my purpose is that I want to help a kid understand basketball, football, baseball is not always the way out. It's not always the way out. You can be a doctor, a lawyer, a teacher, anything, and become successful. As I'm sitting up here on this panel, if I can get some of them kids to understand that and focus at it and become men or women or whatever they want to become, because they're going to be parents at one time and they're going to have kids. That in 10 to 15 years, if they can be up here, not as a sports person, as anything else, as being owners of fast food franchise, 100, 200 of them, and show people that they can get out of there. Because I'm seeing so much in my town right now, young kids from 15 to 17 years old killing a lot of people, but they don't have any guidance. They don't have a parent that can talk to them. As in my players right now, I have an open door policy. Come in here and talk to me about things. And I got kids coming in there talking about, Coach, I think about killing myself. I got a lot of problems at home. I'm worried about this. But what I tell them is, you're 19, 20 years old. Be a kid. Be a kid as long as you can. Have fun. I don't want you to think about that. Because what you cannot control, you can't control. You got to just go ahead and be yourself. Think about the future of how you can help that parent that's sick. Because if you do something to yourself, that's going to just kill your parents. It's going to hurt them. And I want them to understand that, and that's all I do is I try to help kids understand that. Come and be and let it all out. Let it out. Talk to me. I'm an open book. I'm there. They might be scared of me, but I'm an open book.
A lot of people were scared of Gary Payton back in the day. And I want to follow up with you, Eddie, not only for your charitable work, but the fact that you are head coach at an HBCU and can have a tremendous impact on young black men. Tell us a little bit more about your philanthropic work and your role as a coach at an HBCU.
Well, my philanthropic work is connected to TSU athletics. Where I raise goes back to our program, building infrastructure, more programs, nutrition, better facilities, cost of attendance, all of that. And again, prior to me taking the job, I was happy, trying to figure out my 9-iron on the golf course. I was golfing around the country, acting. I had my wealth management business that I started. And I was comfortable, watching my youngest son play football. My oldest son plays football. Now he's at USC Film School, becoming a director. And that to me I was cool with that. But when I was offered this opportunity, I pushed it away. I was like, nah, I don't want to. I know the stress that, with coaches, and TSU is a program that's notorious for players fighting coaches. There was a player that knocked out a strength coach on the sideline. Yeah. I'm not gonna be embarrassed getting sucker punched on television and nah, that's not what I want, I'm good. I took too many hits in my life. Ray Lewis, Junior Seau, God bless his soul. I don't want to see that no more. But again, in my quiet moments and talking to my wife, who's here, my lovely wife, and I told her about the opportunity. She says, well, why not? You'll be a great coach. And I said, nah, I got a lot going on and this and that, but would you ever have a time, when is there a time in life when somebody has no coaching experience gets a head coaching position in these day and times and have a tremendous impact? So that was my goal. I said, you know what? I have a lot to give back to the game that gave so much to me. The reason I'm up here is through the football and the various coaches that poured into my life time and time again. The lifestyle that it afforded me, I'm up here for that very reason. And to Gary's point, to bring young men and women up here on the stage by that influence, by me being a conduit of that and a vessel for that, is the success. So yes, I'm looking to build championship mindset. And that mindset extends beyond the football field into the business world, but more importantly, as a father, as a husband, as a son, as a friend, that's where you make the biggest impact. Those principles and standards that you set. So that's why I'm doing it. And yes, I want to win championships too. I want to rank. Yes. I came 1 yard shy of hoisting up the Lombardi Trophy in 1999, 2000. And I have yet to cross that goal line. So through these kids, they're going to get that spirit to cross that goal line. They're going to get that ring and them banners. I want to see that confetti out the sky. So that's my intention, yes.
Nancy, you have your dream courts. What do you all have working?
Well, the things that we do at Nancy Lehman Charities is a reflection, the 4 pillars, main pillars of what we do. It reflected me growing up. So you get to see me shined up and my hair nice and with these guys, but I was a poor kid growing up in New York with no food, no father, no heat, no electricity. We were one grandparent away from food stamps. And I had a very angry childhood. And I was always getting in fights because people would make fun of me because I didn't have a backpack. I had a brown paper garbage bag to put my books in and kids would laugh at me. So sports changed my life. And then seeing Ali when I was 10 years old on TV, and he changed my life because that was my path. So you mentioned I make the Olympic team. I tried out for the Olympic team in 1974, the USA team. And this was the game changer why I have a charity. I finished going to that USA tryout and I was 15 years old. And I came home and I go, Mom, you're not gonna believe this. I made this USA tryout. We're going to Albuquerque, New Mexico. And she goes, like hell you are. She goes, Nancy, I can't put food on the table. How am I gonna get you to Albuquerque, New Mexico? I said, I don't know, but you're holding me back. And I could really use some help. And so my high school assistant principal took a can of corn, opened it up, cleaned it, put an envelope around the outside, and it said, we're endeavoring to raise $300 to send Nancy to the U.S. Olympic trials. This can went door to door in Far Rockaway where I grew up. Strangers put money, $1, change, $5, I don't know who did it. you know, and the rest is history. Here I am in 2023 in Memphis because strangers empowered me to be successful. So when I became a professional athlete, thank you. When I became a professional athlete, you know, in 1980, like I started thinking, how am I going to help? How am I going to help my friends who maybe didn't have now what I have? There's a lot of kids out there like me and a lot of kids that don't look like me. So we started giving scholarships, you know, like the guys have to kids to go to camp. And then 15 years ago, you know, we became a 501c3, and to this date, we've given 90 college scholarships to send kids to college. We just don't pay for their education. They owe us 4 hours each semester. They shadow first responders. It could be cops, it could be EMS, it could be civic leaders. They have my cell number, they have my email. You have to tell me, am I happy, am I sad? Did I break up? Did I meet a girl? Whatever. So we're staying in communication. Then we help them write their resumes. We get them to paid internships and then hopefully jobs. And then the dream courts, and we have 117 of them around the country right now, and we have over 5.1 million children on our dream courts. It dawned on me that it started out as a court that you could commune, and we all could play and work out. It didn't matter what you looked like, how old you are, what your gender was. And then I realized in time, they became pop-up classrooms where I would not raise my hand in school because I was afraid if I was wrong, people would laugh at me, and then here we go again, I'm in a fist fight. So oddly, that's the truth. So the court, we have STEM, we have kids and cops, we have financial literacy, we have career readiness program, accredited programs, and we have civic engagement. And we're constantly working with the kids, you know, to get, you know, outcomes from all of our measurables. We have social, racial justice lecture series. We go 4 colleges a year and 4 high schools a year. And we share stories just like we're doing here so we can get to know each other, understand each other. And, you know, we've given over $20 million to charity, and it's to the underserved, mostly to the Black and brown communities that need our help and our understanding.
Fantastic stuff. Fantastic stuff. I wish we could go on for more and more and more, because this has been a fantastic conversation. Let's have one more round of applause for 4 very, very worthy recipients of the National Civil Rights Museum Sports Legacy Award. Eddie George, Nancy Lieberman, Lou Aldang, and Gary Payton. Thanks to the National Civil Rights Museum, Dr. Russ Wigginton, and the Hyde Family Foundation for their continued support. I'm Pete Pranica. Look forward to today's game, the Grizzlies and the Phoenix Suns. And that will tip off at 5 o'clock. We've got Grizzlies Live presented by Ford Mid-South Ford dealers at 4:30 right here on Bally Sports Southeast. So we thank all of you for being here at the Built Ford Tough Practice Facility. And for those of you watching on Bally Sports Southeast, thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you next year.
All right, thank you very much, Pete, and great stuff again. Rob Fisher, Brevin Knight with you. Brevin, obviously a lot of great takeaways from today again, and hearing from the 4 honorees, and amazing stories that we hear every single year.
Yeah, amazing stories, and we always hear, like, when did people become knowledgeable of Dr. King? That's always the question that you hear, and this time we had a little joy at first because Petey and Nancy Lieberman, the only 2 alive during that time.